Morning, guys. Dr. Nabi here. I wanted to spend some time just talking about the timeline of childhood. Some of you guys can see I'm traveling on the road again, and so I'm filming this from the hotel room. Um, Timeline is so important. How you plan your life is based on how much time you think you have. Okay. For example, if somebody told you you had 5 years to live, what you would do with those 5 years is very different than what you would do if you felt like you had another 40 or 50 or 60 years to live, right? So timeline is important. And it's the same way when it comes to children, right? We have to really consider the timeline that they have in our house, that they're really our children. Most people have this idea that when you bring a child into this world, you're going to have at least 18 years while they live under your roof until they usually go to college or usually move out, to shape them, to help them, to develop them into the adults and the individuals that you'd like them to be. When you actually think about it, that timeline is overly generous. It's overly generous. And here's why that is, okay? The first 10 years your child's actually living in your home, they see you as a hero. They think you know everything. They love you. They just want to hold you. Everything that you do is amazing. All it takes is a little bit of a toy or a hug or a treat, and they are just absolutely enamored and just in love with you. Okay. They see you as a parent. They see you as all-knowing. They listen to you. When you tell them to sit, they sit. And then when you tell them to do something academic, they do it. When you share your views on values, they actually take that to heart. So that's the first 10 years, right? And that's the critical 10 years where a child's actually receptive to all the information that you have to share with them. When a child is entering adolescence and they go from that age of 10 to 13, they've seen more flaws in you over the first 10 years. They've seen you make mistakes. They've seen that you've been wrong about things that you thought you were right about. And so that child is still listening because they're living in your house, but they're starting to formulate their own ideas, right? They're all starting to think they know what to do. And half the times they're still listening, but they feel like they already have it down already, okay? And, as an adult, you can think of your own self as an adolescent when you started to think that, hey, maybe your parents didn't have all the answers and maybe you thought you had all the answers, okay? And so that's that age between 10 and 13. When a child is between 13 and 18, at that point, they think they've lived 2 lifetimes, even if they haven't. They think they've got most things figured out. They think that, their peers who are at school and the opinions of their peers actually matter more than the opinions of their own parents, okay? And so that's really the timeline of a child in, an individual's house. Most people think they have 18 years to shape that child's worldview, but really that first 10 is when they're most receptive, right? And then when they go from 10 to 18, they're really not that receptive, but they give you the courtesy of listening in the best case scenario, okay? And here's how you use that timeline to really shape how to impact the child appropriately. So if you know that that first 10 years is when you have the chance to make the maximum impact, then it's important to plan to instill your worldviews, your values, lessons about academics and work ethic and all of these things within that first 10 years, okay? The sad part is that first 10 years usually coincides with the peak of most people's careers. And so there's always a struggle between your career and your family just at that critical time where the kids are young and they're actually receptive to the things that you have to say. And so for most people, you end up having to kind of make a choice. Do you build your career or do you spend that time building your family? That choice is a personal decision that each and every one of us has to make. And I can't say what the right decision is, but if you neglect the children piece, right, for that first 10 years and say you build the best career and have this idea that when they're either 13 or 14, you're going to come back and be a part of their lives. When you come back, you will realize that that child may not be as receptive to what you're saying. That child has their own friends, they have their own plans, they have their own ideas about the world. And at that point, you're trying to get to be a part of that child's life and worldview when they all have already formed it, sometimes without you, okay? And then if you try at that third stage, oftentimes the child is literally getting ready for college. Their friends and the opinions of their friends matter. And so to me, that first 10 years is where you can really make that impact and invest that time in your child. If you do, then as they evolve during those later years, they already have a sense of worldview and the sense of values that reflects what you've taught them, okay? So for anybody who is a busy professional, I'm a busy professional, I'm a full-time plastic surgeon with a full schedule. I travel a lot. It's so imperative that you spend that first 10 years building them up. That first 10 years teaching them about work ethic and academics and all the things that you want to impart. That way, during the back half of the time with you, you can send them out into this world, less worried about what they're going to do, their sense of values, who they're going to encounter, just because you've invested that time early on into shaping them into the individuals that you'd like them to be. Anyway, I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts on this. Thank you guys once again for tuning in. I'm on the road, but I thought this was something that I wanted to share, especially for parents who are who are children are aging and struggling to figure out why it is that, it's hard to get certain messages across to their kids. When we were teenagers, we were probably just the same. When I lived in my parents' house between, 13 and 18, I thought I knew everything. There really wasn't anything my parents were going to tell me that, I thought I didn't know already. And, now at my age, I look back and I think, wow, I thought I had it all figured out when really there was very little, that I knew at that time. So once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Take care.